Welcome. Today I'm going to talk about how my academics, character, and relationships, and of course health, have benefited from physical exercise and proper nutrition and other aspects of my health journey. Now, you might have to excuse me, I might be reading a little bit from my notes here, so that if you see me looking away, that's why. Alright, so I have a little bit of a list here and we're just going to run straight through it. And we're going to start with academics. So, and by the way, this is just a small sampler. Like if I really wanted to go into this could have been much longer. So academics. So for example, in college and high school, if I were stuck on computer science or math assignments or just an essay, if I went to the gym and frequently I would find whatever the bug in the code was or whatever I was stuck on the math problem or essay. So it helps break through plateaus so you get these creative breakthroughs after stepping away for a while. It doesn't even have to be working out, but particularly working out gets that blood pumping. All right, you could study for longer. So I felt physically better, so I could study for, let's say, like 3 hours, whereas my friends who don't go to the gym, they would start getting tired after like 2 hours. Then we have, well, also we can, so I neglected to mention this, but study longer, but also work faster. So if you're physiologically warmed up, you've woken up, right? If you just wake up and then you take an exam, you start off a little sluggish. But if your body's operating in tip-top shape, you're going to be working a little bit faster and a little bit better. All right, next, increased concentration. So it's not even the length of concentration, but like per moment, how good is are you missing things or are you fully alert? So, and that's just a physiological benefit of exercising and eating right. And of course, sleep and other things. All right, next. Now, this is a little less obvious, but making friends and social relationships. So maybe you have kids in your class and you don't feel comfortable talking to them during class, but you might see them at the gym or at some other activity, and then you make friends with them. And guess what? You guys can now start forming study groups, and you guys can help each other. And that gives you a little bit of a mental boost too, because now you're not alone struggling through this class. So this is probably one of the most underappreciated benefits, which is the social benefit for your academic performance. Next, so critical thinking and problem solving. So how is that involved? Well, so let's say you have health issues, or you want to, even if you don't have health issues, but you have health goals. So maybe you want to get stronger, or like for me, I had a slip disc in my back, so a herniated disc. So and also a messed up knee from breakdancing. But the point is, like, how do you improve those things? There's certain exercises, certain things you can do in your lifestyle that can help those things a lot. Now, again, I just want to stress that I hate to say this, but I'm not a medical doctor, so nothing I say in this video, don't use your own sense, consult your doctor, don't just go and try whatever I say, just in case. All right, so that's the critical thinking and problem solving. And then, I mean, the obvious benefit is if you're exercising, you're going to get a release of endorphins, so there's going to be a stress reduction, but also you're going to be better at dealing with anxiety. And so I said test anxiety is better. I didn't say lower, because you might want to check out my test anxiety video on my channel, where I talk about we don't necessarily want to eliminate anxiety, we want to learn how to deal with it. And so if you're exercising or playing sports, you learn how to deal with pressure better. All right. And so also, like, especially around exam time. So a lot of people that don't exercise, they just resort to stimulants like coffee. Like a lot of my friends, or even like high school kids these days, they're just drinking a ton of coffee or black tea or whatever it is. Or, hopefully you're not doing any drugs or pills or anything, but the point is you might get a boost from coffee, but then you're going to crash. Whereas if you really want like that long-term advantage, exercise is the way to go. So I found that far more effective. Like coffee might be 5 or 10%, and exercise is like 90% over the long term. Like on a given day, if it's your first day exercising, no, but on the whole, check out exercise. All right, so character. I mentioned consistency in one of my math videos, but I had a roommate in college, and so I'll just tell you guys the story of how he inspired me to be more consistent. And also, so this is both my roommate and his bench pressing story, as well as rock climbing. So with my roommate, freshman year in college, he could bench 100 pounds. So that's not a lot of weight for a guy, as many of you probably know. In fact, it's a little laughable, but he kept at it and he kept going consistently, like once every 3, 4, 5 days for 4 years. So by senior year, 4 years later, he was bench pressing 245 pounds for 10 repetitions. Now, so he'd increased from 100 pounds for like 3 reps to 245 pounds for 10 reps. Now, that's not like an Olympic record or anything, but the point is, I was shocked because I saw him go from point A to point B, whereas I started maybe at like, I don't know, like 150 or 145, and I went up to like 165 or 175. I didn't progress that much. I improved just like a little bit. The point is, so I was like, but every time I went into the gym, I was working super hard for like 3 hours. So, but what I wasn't was consistent. He was consistent. So I was outworking him every time he went to the gym, but he almost never failed to go to the gym. So that's what helped teach me consistency. And then also, but by the way, I did not learn consistency from academics really. I learned it way more from the physical side of things. And also rock climbing. So in rock climbing, if you guys have ever gone bouldering, so that's the thing where you don't climb as high and there's no rope, but there's numbers, there's difficulty levels. There's like V0, V1, V2, maybe there's other schemes of numbering. But the point is, or if you're doing weightlifting, if you go consistently, you can objectively say, look, before I couldn't do a V2, but I've been going like 3-4 times a week, and now I went from a V0 to a V1 to a V2. It's very concrete. Whereas if your parents or your teachers feel like you need to be more consistent in terms of like studying or not procrastinating or being better, it's a little hard to quantify. Whereas I find with like exercising, it can be easier. So you notice like, oh, I was consistent, I improved. So that's what helped me learn consistency. So now this is probably the biggest one. Determination, or whatever you want to call it, these are all related terms. They're not the same, but related. Grit, persistence, perseverance. So there's many aspects of how this comes into play. So for example, let's say you're exercising and it's tempting to give up when the going gets tough. So maybe you're like trying to do that last repetition and you're tempted to give up, but you persevere, you persist through that repetition. Or you're going for a run and you want to give up, but you complete the run, or whatever other exercise. So, and I think actually this is one of this whole group of qualities, maybe one of the most important qualities for being successful. It's not where you're starting off, but rather how you persist in your activity. And the other thing is, you'll also, if you do persist, you'll start gaining momentum, and that will give you further encouragement. So, and seeing, like, so when I exercise, for example, and I see myself progressing in the exercises, that gives me the confidence that like, oh, well, if I'm determined and I stick with it, I can tackle the larger challenges in my life the same way. And by the way, like with my teaching as well, when I look at other like students and how to think about how to help them, I can apply that to my life as well. So that's also great. Empathy, that's a big one. So, if you're starting out or you're sort of an intermediate, you might see people at the gym or whatever activity you're doing that might be a lot better than you, some that are far worse. And it can be humbling and just help you develop empathy to realize, hey, I was once like them, or like putting yourself in other people's shoes so you're not too judgmental. But also, you might get injured and realize like, oh, well, it helps you realize what other people might be dealing with, because you see, usually, unless you're working out just in your living room, like all the time by yourself, for many physical activities, like if you're at the gym or part of a sports team or a club, or at the playground doing like calisthenics or pull-ups and push-ups, you'll probably run into other people, and just that social interaction can really help, I find, build empathy. So you might see older people, younger people, people with disabilities, all sorts of cases. Now, in terms of relationships, I'll just keep it brief. I can get pretty cranky sometimes, and I know that if I find myself getting cranky and I go work out, I feel a lot better, and suddenly that, like I'm not going to get into an argument with someone, or it's just smoothed over. All right. Also, bonding. Like if you do any activity, with your friend or a loved one or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, that's going to help you get closer and develop a deeper sense of attachment. Health. I mean, this is the obvious. There's going to be a lot of health things, so I'm not going to go into them. I'll just mention two briefly. So, in my late 20s, I started getting this weird case of acid reflux, and through nutritional and lifestyle changes, I basically found a way to reverse it. So I might make a video. I think I'm going to make a video later in the series on that. So depression. So as many people, I don't think I've had a clinically very bad case of depression, but I think everybody has periods of depression, and just doing things like getting more sunlight and getting better sleep, as well as other things. Like I said, I'm not trying to diagnose, this is just what has worked for me. But the point is, some health interventions have really improved my life. So these things have made a big difference for me. I'll leave it there, but the point, what am I trying to get across? It's not just exercise, and nutrition is not just for being fit and looking good. If you just care about grades or academics, really take a closer look into exercise and nutrition. It can help impact that a lot. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.